Hello, traders. It's Matt and Jacey with Empire Algorithmic Trading coming at you with Vwapvision Stock Talk Weekly Review.
It's where we use the volume weighted average price to make sense of what's going on in the market. So, like I always say, Matt, let's get to it, shall we?
Let's go. Weekly Review.
Stock talk.
Uh,
Well, happy Saturday, Matt, for a special edition of Weekly Review. How are you doing this morning?
oh, can't complain, man. It's a beautiful Saturday. Nice weekend. Family is all happy and healthy. So I am in a good spot. How about you, buddy?
Hey, that's fantastic. I'm doing pretty good. I woke up this morning and I right away I started working a little bit, had some coffee, looking at some charts, and I was like, I want a donut. And then I realized it's really late in the morning, and so I go out and there's a little bakery down the road that I kind of enjoy. Parking lot was jam packed. I normally get there early, and so I'm like, what? I can't go there. So I drove down the road a little bit more, and there's a Dunkin's, and its parking lot was full. So I drive down the road a little bit further to go to Krispy Kreme, and its parking lot was full. So I'm like, I could not park anywhere to get a donut. So I came back home, made some breakfast burritos, and I'm going to probably go out and get myself a little sweet dessert here in a little bit. But it was amazing. I couldn't believe that. 0 for 3 all on the same road. I think everybody at the same time. So tomorrow morning, when I get up early, I'm not going to start looking at charts right away. I'm going to go get myself a nice donut.
Saturday must just be donut day in Florida, huh?
I guess so. I guess so, man. But anyhow, there's nothing sweet about the stock market right now. It was a pretty rough week. I think everything was down on the week. I don't even know what news there was. I don't even care, right? I don't pay attention to any of the headlines. I simply love to just watch the market for what the market is. And the best
Right.
way to do that is to use the volume weighted average price. I want to
Right.
show some charts without the VWAPs on there so people that are watching can get an idea of how we can see clarity when it doesn't make any sense of what's going on. So let's take a look at the S&P 500 like we always start with.
Dive
I'm
in.
going to I'm going to turn these indicators off. So when you're looking at this chart, it's got a wicked sell-off. It's breaking. Why did the stock stop here? So if you're looking at the traditional reading, you're thinking, well, there's kind of a base in this area back in August. So maybe it's just finding some support there. There's a low here that is holding above the resistance up here at 5,700 for say. Support down here at 5,400. The market just happened to find support there for whatever reason. And then it rallies up a little bit, and then it just sold off in the last 3 days, and it sold off hard. However, when you add the VWAPs, it puts it all into context, and you can see exactly what's going on. So let's add those lines again. So this all of a sudden it looks like a completely different chart. Where the market's topped out this week is right at the all-time high VWAP. There's no
Mhm.
surprise to see the market selling off here. We're in a red zone. Sellers are in control. When that happens, when it gets to usually around your averages, institutions will use that as an opportunity to start unloading shares. And that's exactly what we saw. If we didn't have the VWAP, we wouldn't know what was going on. If we
And
use
then
traditional, I'm sorry,
real
go on, Matt.
quick to cut in, I just want to say for those of you listening, and those of you new to us here, VWAP is volume weighted average price. So that's what we're using is the volume weighted average price based on different entry and exit points that the stock has historically had here. So, and what point did we find that resistance on the top? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier in the week, but what was that level at, Jace?
Yeah, so that was right when the S&P 500 closed at 57.76. Its high for the day was 57.86. Like we talked about on that Wednesday, it was a little small doji right underneath resistance, and we kind of said that's kind of setting up for a sell-off, right? We got that sell-off the following day, and then it just continued throughout the week. So it was pretty obvious to us using the VWAP. But if you take that all-time high VWAP out, it kind of maybe traded above the 20-day exponential moving average. It was clearing the 10-day exponential moving average, and it's well below the 50-day exponential moving average. So there's no real clear reason why stocks sold off there, and it doesn't make a lot of sense until you add the VWAP. Once you put that VWAP there, the volume weighted average price, Why does that matter? It's because that is the average price that the average participant has paid since the all-time high. So until then, people were losing money. So it just makes sense. People are getting a chance on average to recover their losses and get out. That's exactly what we saw is they're recovering their losses, they're getting out. So it's very important. This is why we use the VWAPs and nothing else, simply because it just tells us exactly where the buyers and the sellers are at. And it is the best indicator on the market. And that's why we built this whole model around it. So we want to use it to help ourselves and we want to use it to help you guys as well. So let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about what might happen going down the road. So obviously the market found support at the VWAP. When you go way back here, this is from this little sell signal back in December of 2023, where the volume weighted average price is finding support. So there is a little bit of long-term potential institutional support at this level. Institutions are not like us. They buy at average prices. They want to buy at average prices. When stocks get a little extended beyond their average prices, they tend to push them back a little bit. We can talk about how that works in individual stocks, but let's just talk a little bit about the general market, the broad general market. So right now, the reason why this high right here is important is because it was right when the market just was coming out of a previous correction, just starting to hit new all-time highs. So that's an important price point that institutions will mark. Hey, this is an important period. Let's make sure that that we're going to be around the average price at this point, and that's exactly what we're seeing. It played out well back in April of 2024, where it found support there. It found it again support in August during the Japanese yen sell-off. Right at that bottom is right where this VWAP is, and is starting to find support there. We've talked about before about change of trend, and I think this is what we're witnessing. We saw the uptrend break. We saw a attempted high get pushed back down, and now we're seeing the low, the previous significant low, which I believe is right here in November of 24 at about 5,700. That broke, and it's also coinciding with the resistance that we saw too. So you have you have an important low that was broke. You have the volume weighted average price that's right at previous support, which it's amazing how they always seem to coincide. When this thing turns around, it would not surprise me to see if the eventual green arrow usually ends up around where the red arrow started. That happens quite often, unless we enter a significant downturn, then it's going to be much lower. But if this is just a normal correction and we get a little trading range here, when that market breaks out, it's going to be strong, right? And it could very well be the green arrow is going to be right around 5,900. If it's not, then we're in some trouble. But it's just part of the process. But it's really cool when you know how to use the VWAP, how it can show you exactly what's going on in the market. So moving forward, we're going to look for support again at this lower VWAP, which is about 55.29 right now. So I'm kind of expecting that to get tested. If it doesn't get tested, we're going to have some issues, right? So the best way to use the VWAP is start with the highs. Start with the highs before any correction. So we've got this little mini correction back in November. I'm going to change that to purple.
Ooh,
We have this
purple
mini.
Vikings.
Yeah, I knew you would like that. Anyhow, we've got this correction back from July of 23 through October of 23. And then the market broke out of that, and then we were off to the races. So this is a very important VWAP to touch. The reason why is, one, it found resistance before, when it was in the middle of that correction. But two, it hasn't even come close to testing it yet. So we've got a little bit of a gap. There might be, if we settle at the low of that one, there's probably a VWAP right in between these 2 points. I've found VWAPs at the lows generally don't provide a lot of support. It's usually the accumulation throughout the entire base is where the support comes into play. Lows tend to just kind of include half of the base generally. They do work sometimes, but more often than not, they will fail. It's the long-term entire base support that we're looking for. But we're just going to keep that on there for now. Actually, let's change that color so we don't get confused. Let's make that one white. We'll make that one gray. All right, so this is where we're at. We've got potential support at 55.25. If that doesn't hold, we're going to look for probably about 5,400 is going to be our next point. So we might see a rally, especially if we get a high volume break of this. There might be a quick shakeout and a quick move higher. In that case, we'll be ready. But in that, we're going to want to see the all-time high VWAP get eclipsed. That's when we're going to be getting excited. For now, it's just simply sit back, wait, let the buyers and the sellers, let the sellers get out of the way, let institutions figure out exactly where to price this thing so we can get a floor, we can get a base, we can get some clear resistance like we have right now. So we know, okay, buyers are in control, we're passing resistance, we've got a trend, now we can put some money to work. As this is a weekly review, let's just take a look at everything. Nasdaq Composite not near as good as the S&P 500. Didn't even come close to its all-time high VWAP. Didn't come close to its recent sell-off VWAP. Tried to rally above the 21 and the 10-day VWAPs. Sold off quickly. Didn't even touch its trend. So the Nasdaq is in the doghouse right now. Like I said earlier in the week, it's strange to say that because the Nasdaq has been a leader for as long as I can remember. So it's kind of weird seeing the Nasdaq just underperform everything. Also, I want to talk about we're gonna ditch the 10 and the 20-day moving averages for now. We're in a downtrend. Those are valuable for when the market's in an uptrend, and we want to see support, and we want to know when to possibly take profits because they'll tend to break those trends. For now, they're just going to provide resistance. If we were playing the short side, we might want to use those, but as for now, we aren't going short on anything. We're just letting the market play out. So we're just going to ditch those averages for now. Same thing with the mid caps, man. The mid caps, let's just get rid of these drawings and actually put some VWAPs on here. These are actually the small caps, excuse me. Small caps are in trouble. Long story short, if you go back to you want to go back to its previous all-time high here, that's kind of where we're finding support at, and that's going to be a pretty significant point. We tried doing a little bit of rally. We found some resistance. And so we're looking at 196 as potential support. We're currently at 200, so that's about what 2% below where we're at right now.
Right.
But the all-time high VWAP is about 10% higher than where we're at. So the market's got a lot of work. We need all of them firing on all cylinders, right? If we want to get into an easy money market, right? We need the large caps, the mid caps, the techs, the small caps, all moving. So then it just becomes to what stock is going to move the fastest, not what stock is going to fail. So I'm excited for those days, but we're not there yet. Mid caps, same scenario, right? Mid caps, their long-term VWAP is way down around 500. This fund is currently at 532. The next level of support that we're at is from a high, which I'm not a really big fan of, but for some reason the market's finding buyers here from a high back in July of 23. So I would kind of expect if this breaks down, we very well could see 500, which is about 5%, 5-6% below where we're at right now. Now we're talking ugly territory on the mid caps. So I hope we don't
Right.
see that. It would be really nice to see some support here, but I'm not holding my breath.
Hmm.
And it was nice to see bonds rally a little
Okay.
bit. So
All
we're
right.
kind of avoiding that nightmare scenario of a bond sell-off with an equity sell-off. They're still holding. It was really kind of comforting to see that kind of rally. I was kind of appreciative of that. As you can see, my studies have shown when bonds live below their anchored VWAP, it tends to spell trouble for stocks. So we're going to want to see bonds kind of rally, not really rally, but just stabilize. We want stable interest rates. We don't want a volatile interest rate market. We have enough volatility as it is. So that's kind of where we're at in a general market theme.
I will
Uh,
say real quick, Jace, that it is nice to see, but I feel like those bonds are just teasing us. They're like, gonna crash, gonna crash. Just kidding. Nope, going down, going down. No, no, we're not. It's like they just keep kind of dipping and pop and
yeah,
then dipping and pop.
this is classic trading range right here. You've got
Yeah.
you've got this gap here. It broke, and you're thinking, all right, it's going to test these lows. No, it didn't. So there's obviously some bids at these interest rates,
Yeah.
and so that's a very good thing to see.
Yeah.
Bonds trade a little bit a little bit differently than stocks do. But I have noticed that, like I said, when the bonds fall apart, you can see it in the VWAP. That just telling you that the interest rates are about ready to get out of control, and that's always bad for the market. So
Mm.
that's why I pay attention to that. But like I said, bonds are a different beast, a completely different market. I know some people say bonds are more sophisticated. Stop being stuck up. You're not more sophisticated. It's just different fundamentals. Yeah. But anyhow, that's just me being a stock snob, I guess. I did want to I did run a screen. I kind of wanted to see how some of the best stocks are holding up, and so I ran a screen on we like to use earnings per share growth and revenue growth as a foundational screen of what we do, and then we filter through different price scenarios, and so I've created a screen of the best performing stocks that match some of our fundamental criteria over the past month. And I kind of wanted to see how have they held up during this sell-off this week. Some of them look okay, and some of them are starting to show some signs of cracking. So here's this one that I just came across, Exodus Movement. I don't know anything about it other than the chart looks very interesting. It's a new IPO. Went IPO in December. Ran up from an IPO price of 53 all the way up to 117, was its ultimate peak. Sold off hard and is kind of finding a little bit of a range here. So I'm watching this one. I added this one to the watch list for next week. It's actually trading above its all-time high VWAP, which is pretty impressive.
No
It did
kidding.
flash one of our algorithm sell signals last week, and is holding above that. It didn't crater when the whole market was selling off. So very strong relative strength out of this stock. So we're definitely going to pay attention to this. Obviously we're not making any trades on anything. The probabilities are too far against us, but it's just good to see some relative strength out there. Root, which was a buy signal, and then it flashed a sell signal and it's quickly recovered. It sold off hard this week, which is what you would expect, particularly with a stock that's been running. But look at where it sold off right to. It sold off right to its VWAP from its previous sell signal, and you'll often find that that's going to be a support level. So that's why we like to leave VWAPs anchored, particularly around sell signals. You get three quick little down days, but also look where it found support after that little
No
sell signal,
kidding.
right at the high from its previous sell signal. So those VWAPs come into play, right? Here's your first potential buy signal right here. I'm sorry, right there. It found support at that, and then just continued to gap higher. So again, that's why we like to use the VWAPs, because it makes sense of why the stock stopped where it did.
Hmm.
This is what I'm watching here, GENI. It's riding the VWAP. It's riding this long-term VWAP here. And it's got a couple of midterm VWAPs right here that it's also riding. So I kind of like this stock. If we were in a slightly better market, it would be a much more exciting stock. As you can see, it's trading above its all-time IPO VWAP, and it's living there. It found support there. It sold off briefly and then rallied hard on massive volume. That's telling
Yeah.
you institutions are buying this baby up right there. So the fact that it cleared it and is holding above that is very exciting. It not only did it rally back above the IPO VWAP, but it rallied above its basis VWAP, and it's holding above that. It tried to break out last week. It's being tested with the markets. Would not surprise me at all to see this thing hold probably around 950, as long as we don't get a complete collapse in the market. So this one is showing very strong relative strength. This is going to stay on our watch list basically until it collapses, or we get a green zone. So I would expect to see this one on the next buy list for sure.
Yes.
Idaho Strategic Resources. This is a gold stock. Relative to other gold stocks, this stock is a little bit of a laggard. We've had some other gold stocks break out that have performed a little bit better. Relative to the general market, it is holding up quite well. It was a leader last year. I mean, it rallied up from 6 up to 18, so that's like a 200% gain right there. And then it corrected like they always do, but it's finding strength. Let's see if we can find where this bottom is. Do you think we could find the VWAP support there, Matt?
Oh, I have a feeling.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Let's go right there. No, let's go way back. There it is. So you got to go way back to its base, its previous high back in July of 2020 for that VWAP to
Wow.
come into play. Find some potential support. Found it
That's some
twice,
long-term holders
actually.
there.
Right in there. So that's some long-term players right there. So the funds are different, right? You've got some long-term value holders. You have the momentum trades. You have funds that will not consider a stock. They use the all-time high VWAP as an indicator to start taking positions, which is why you'll often see when the stock starts trading below its all-time high VWAP, why you often see volatility pick up because they also use that as potential sell signals. When you combine that with breaking of the 10-day moving averages, breaking of the 21-day VWAP averages, that's just more signs. And then the algorithms start picking up and then more selling, and then it just becomes a snowball effect, right? And then losses become, and then stop losses come into play, then retailers come into play. So living below the VWAP is never a good thing. Living above the VWAP, completely different story. You start seeing institutions see that stock hold there, they start buying more shares because they see the strength, which then creates more demand. So as the stocks sell off, they want to buy those shares at that average price. There's a natural floor to that. Once all those sellers that were buying below the VWAP are cleared out, the stock has nowhere to go up because now you have momentum trades, you have momentum algorithms. Then you get retail traders in on it, and they just tend to go. So that's why we use the all-time high VWAP, particularly the anchored all-time high VWAP, is our leading indicator because the institutions use it. So if the institutions use it, why shouldn't we use it? And once you know
Right.
how they use it and how it works, it just makes it so much easier and so much better. So we're studying some patterns and seeing exactly what happens before. We're compiling a list of breakouts that didn't test, right? Quite a few stocks do test their VWAPs, do test their buys. I want to know what happens to the stocks that didn't test. What happens to those ones that just shot up 40% in a couple of weeks that never had to test our patience, right? How did they set up? What was the difference? And we're working on that. And once we get a complete list on that, we'll put a great video out to show everybody exactly what the telltale signs that you want to look for. So I'm very
Yeah.
excited for the results of some of that work. Yeah, let's just keep going. We've got a lot to take a look at here. Arquat. These are, I know it's Arquat, it's Arcutus or Arcutus, however you want to pronounce it. A little bit of a sell-off, kind of what you would expect. This is why we
Yeah.
don't like to buy. Granted, it's pretty extended. It took a little while. It did the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, a little trick before it actually flashed the buy signal. These do work in good markets, but we are not in a good market. So I'm not as surprised to see this one sell off. Baldwin Insurance is holding up quite well. Like we've
Hmm.
said for the past 2 weeks, the insurance stocks are the shining light. They're like the
Yeah.
lighthouse in this market. A lot of money is moving there because they tend to have a lot of cash on hand. So they tend
Right.
to benefit. That in insurance is a staple. You have to have insurance. So it's kind of a recession-proof industry. So that's why we're seeing some of that. What surprises me is all the pharmaceuticals and biotechs that we're seeing break out. That's kind of shocking because those are generally riskier trades, but they're holding up quite well. Tarsus Pharmaceuticals is an example. It flashed a buy signal for us not last week, but the week before, and it's holding up. It's holding up above its buy price, but buy signal price, but also above its VWAP, and its
Yeah.
VWAP is starting to trend higher. So some really unique strength there from Tarsus. Uh, Palvella Therapeutics. This one is an interesting case study. This is why I put this one on here. One, this is turning into a very nice flag. At this point here, it wasn't looking so good. I'm going to zoom back a little bit. It was drifting higher, and when you get higher highs and higher lows as they're kind of going up, particularly after a big sell-off, that tends to portend a continuation. It's going to just break and continue to go down, which we saw potential for that earlier this week when we had a potential red arrow. But something interesting happened is it broke that pattern. It
Huh.
broke the higher lows, it broke the lower highs, It tried to break out. Sellers tried pushing it down. It tried to break to the downside, but on Friday they came in. Of all days, buyers came in and
Interesting.
supported this stock. So now what we have is we have a potential test of that low, a potential
Yeah.
successful test, and then we can get rid of all these and we can change this to a flat top. So now we have a pretty significant looking flag right now. So it's kind of
Interesting.
fun watching this. This is why we don't anticipate, right? This is why you're like,
Yep.
when you're looking at that first down area, you're thinking 100% we're in a bad market. 100% this thing is going to break. It's been on a tear. It's gone from $10 up to $28. This thing is due to collapse. And look at exactly what happened. Buyers came in, they surprised, they ate those shares up. And I believe it did it on increasing volume as well. So
Wow.
a very unique pattern. It's kind of neat
Yeah.
how things play out, and it's actually a lower high. So that's always a bonus too. So whenever you start seeing stable lows and lower highs, that tends to portend breakouts to higher ground. So we'll see what plays out with PVLA, but it's kind of fun seeing how evolution goes. So again, that's why we
Absolutely.
don't anticipate. That's why we react. Lastly, Argan, there's a whole bunch on here, but we don't really have to go through all that. It's getting kind of boring. Um, Argan tried to get above its VWAP. It's kind of an exciting move. It was up 19% when the whole market was selling off. Strong earnings report, but it wasn't a bullish candle. It gapped, it rallied up hard, and then sold off for the rest of the day. Closed right at its VWAP. Would not surprise me to see some more volatility around here, particularly with where we're at in the general market. But it's just nice to see some good action instead of just some hardcore selling on
Right.
earnings reports. So Argan very well could be. Plus, it's found a little bit of support at a long-term view up from its gap up when it started this big run back in April of 24. So that's always important to see as well. But for the most part, Matt, it's just sit back, relax, let the Bulls and the Bears fight it out, and we're just going to wait for the Bulls to win.
Well, I can't wait, dude. And hopefully that'll be coming here soon. But like we said, the market, you never can tell it. So it's always interesting to see how it goes.
One day at a time, my friend. One day at a time. Well, as
Exactly.
always, where can they find us?
Well, for those listening on Spotify and those watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us daily. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe on both platforms. You can follow us on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on X, and also Blue Sky. If you want more information about who we are, where we come from, why we put together this model, check out our website. That's vwapvision.com, vwapvision.com. And if you'd like access to our algorithmic daily buy sell signals or our green or red arrows, some educational content, extra things that we have on our Patreon, subscribe there. That's patreon.com/Empire Algorithmic Trading. It's a fantastic platform for us to be on. We have a nice little community there, and we can actually get very responsive there too. So make sure you leave some comments, like for us, ask us some questions. We're always willing to interact with those who are following us. And as always, thank you and happy trading.
Happy trading, Matt. Have a good rest of your day. See you later, buddy.
Bye, buddy.